In the film Jurassic Park, what sounds were used to create the famous T-Rex roar? In this movie, Doctors Grant and Sattler find a sick Triceratops. Did they ever find out the cause of its illness? Why does the symbol for Jurassic Park feature an animal from the Cretaceous period? Huh? These and more questions will be answered in
Back Look Cinema, the podcast.
If I may, I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourself, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Hi, my name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z to the O for those of you outside of the U.S. Welcome back, friends. This is the 194th episode of Backlook Cinema, the podcast, where we take a look back at the movies of yesteryear, especially the movies of the latter half of the last millennium. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that gorgeous and charming rock star of a chaos theory mathematician about Backlook Cinema. Now, in a previous episode, I mentioned that I had covered The Lost World Jurassic Park, and that's the only movie that I've done in the Jurassic Park series until now. It's high time that we talk about the film that started it all, Jurassic Park. This film is special to me because it's the first movie that I watched after I graduated Army Basic Training in AIT. And I remember being totally blown away by that movie. Everything was just incredible. I mean, that's like months and months of not actually being able to watch any television, not being able to watch any movie. And the first movie that I see is Jurassic Park. I'm telling you, I hit the jackpot. Now, it's been said that Spielberg believed that Raiders of the Lost Ark was the most perfect movie that he ever made because after he made it, he didn't want to change anything. No reshoots, no re-edits, or anything like that. Respectfully, Mr. Spielberg, Jurassic Park is pretty damn good. So let's get into this movie in the opening credits. Jurassic Park, 1993. John Hammond had been in the amusement business for years. The first attraction he ever built was the Petticoat Lane Flea Circus. Of course, there were no real fleas. It was all an illusion. But Hammond continued to build better and grander attractions. Finally, he created an amusement park that would forever change the world. He would finally create something that was not only transformative, but real, something that people could feel and touch. There would be an inherent dangers and setbacks, but the rewards would be overflowing. After the death of one of the workers, the investors of Hammond's grand project demanded assurances that Hammond was taking every precaution. Hammond would go through every step and jump any hurdle to calm the investors' fears. Soon, people all over the world would be able to see what hard work, advanced science, and sheer will could produce. They would witness something far beyond what anyone had ever dreamed of. They would visit his Jurassic Park and see long extinct dinosaurs once again roam the earth. He would spare no expense. This movie was released June 11th, 1993, produced by Universal Pictures and Amblin Entertainment. The original release grossed over $357 million in the U.S. and Canada and over $978 million worldwide on a reported budget of $63 million. that's a lot of money. Even if it were made right now, that's a lot of money. And that it's like they made the movie and it hit the jackpot. It's past the blockbuster. But what if we adjusted for inflation and doing that? The numbers are bananas. So if we adjust it as though the film was released today, then the gross would have been $798 million domestically. And then across the world, the worldwide total would be $2.1 billion. And the budget for the movie would have been $140. $140 million. But that is absolutely incredible. It was a total phenomenon. It's like, that movie, I feel like, basically brought dinosaurs back to the zeitgeist. And it's why we have so many Jurassic Park sequels. It is why they keep taking another bite at the apple. They want to see that success again. And it's not like these movies are any financial slouches. Like, I can't speak for the quality of the film. It's like, for me personally, the first Jurassic Park was the best Jurassic Park. It's like they've never been able to recapture that magic after the first one. And they tried so hard. I guess the closest they came was the Lost World Jurassic Park. And there were some sequences in Jurassic Park 3 that were pretty neat. But the overall film of Jurassic Park, the first one, it's just amazing. I can't speak too much on the more recent sequels, Jurassic World. I've only seen the first one, and to me, that film was lackluster, and I was never encouraged to see the sequels. Although I'm curious about the latest sequel that's out. I think the stars Mahershala Ali and Scarlett Johansson. I believe they're in the movie, and I heard that it's much better than some of the most recent Jurassic Park movies. So I'm curious about it. I might watch it. It might be good. Let's see what happens. But going back to the original, it's starring Sam Neill. He plays Dr. Alan Grant. And what I had not realized when I first watched the movie is that Sam Neill is actually Irish. And when I first saw the movie, and when I used to watch the movie back then, because I watched it a few times after it came out in movie theaters, and I'll watch it at home or on TV or whatever, his American accent sounded great. It's like he fooled me. I thought he was American. It was a long time before I realized that he's not American. That he was Irish. But even in this movie, like when I watched it more recently, in this most recent watch, I guess because I'm aware that he's Irish now, when I listen to him talk, his accent isn't quite right. It actually sounds like he's an Australian man trying to ape an American accent. That's what it sounds like to me. It's like it's still very convincing, but it also sounds a little Australianish. And so I don't know if anybody else hears it, but I hear that now, and it's freaking me out. And you may have also seen Sam Neill in The Hunt for the Wilder People, The Hunt for Red October. A lot of hunts going over here. And we covered that all the way back in episode 2. Memoirs of an Invisible Man. Thor Love and Thunder, that's actually more of a cameo. And a movie that I saw recently that I covered in episode 137 called Event Horizon. Laura Dern plays Dr. Ellie Sattler, and you may have seen her in Wild, Marriage Story, Blue Velvet, Little Women from 2019, or you have feast your eyes on her in Star Wars Episode 8. I had to count the Roman numerals. Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Actually, I'm going to be for real. Even though The Last Jedi was not my favorite Star Wars movie, she was in the best sequence in that movie with when they destroyed the giant Star Destroyers with hyperspace. That was a beautiful scene. Up next is Jeff Goldblum. He plays Dr. Ian Malcolm. You may have seen him in The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, and I covered that in episode 190. There's also the Grand Budapest Hotel. I learned that he could sing watching the movie Wicked, and you may have also seen him in Asteroid City. Richard Attenborough plays John Hammond. This is an Englishman, and he's putting on a Scottish accent, very convincing. As you know, I'm not like an authority on what a Scottish accent should be like, but I was very convinced. You may have also seen him in The Great Escape, Gandhi, or Elizabeth. Bob Peck plays Robert Muldoon. This is a British actor, and it sounds like he's putting on an Australian accent. Interesting that it's like nobody's working with their natural accent. Everybody's acting here. But it sounded to me like a very convincing Australian accent. You may have seen him in Slipstream, Fairy Tale, A True Story, or The Opium War. Martin Ferrero plays Donald Gennaro. It looks like it rhymes, if I'm pronouncing these names correctly. You may have seen him in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and I talked about him recently in the movie Get Shorty back in episode 165. B.D. Wong plays Chief Geneticist Dr. Henry Wu, and you may have seen him in Mulan, or you heard him in Mulan in 1998, or a movie called Focus. Joseph Mazzello, I think that's correct, plays Ten Murphy, and you may have seen him in The Social Network or The River Wild. Ariana Richards plays Alexis Lex Murphy, and I think her first appearance was in Tremors. We covered that all the way back in episode 50. Or you may have seen her in Angus, but she hasn't had a whole lot of acting credits. Samuel L. Jackson plays Ray Arnold, and of course you've seen him in Pulp Fiction. Of course you've seen him in Snakes on a Plane. Wayne Knight plays Dennis Dietrich, and you know, he's had other roles besides Newman on Seinfeld. You may have seen him in Dirty Dancing or this movie called Rat Race. And I know he's been in some more recent appearances. I hadn't seen him in a long time outside of the movies that he made in the 90s. And I seen him in a recent photograph, and he looks like a different person because he lost so much weight, right? So it's like he's a new man. Newman. This movie was directed by Steven Spielberg, and you may have seen, I think was his first film was The Sugarland Express, or there's another movie, an early film, 1941, that he directed in 1979, or The Adventures of Tintin, or War Horse, or The BFG. I've done a few Spielberg movies. I'm going to run out of, I like to do different movies that, you know, people have directed or starred in, and I'm going to run out of different movies and talking about Steven Spielberg. This movie was written by Michael Crichton and David Coe. What's interesting about Crichton's involvement is that usually when there is an adaptation of an original work, because this movie is based on his novel Jurassic Park, usually it's like the novel is optioned and the writer has no further involvement other than maybe giving some suggestions and notes. That's about, he does some consulting. But Michael Crichton's different. He actually wrote the screenplay for this movie, and he's written other film and TV projects. For example, he wrote Twister. He wrote Rising Sun, which is another film based on his novel. He wrote Westworld, the original 1973 movie, which I think is based on his novel. And he wrote The Great Train Robbery. Coep is no slouch, and he's written a lot of great movies, including Stir of Echoes, Mission Impossible from 1996, Spider-Man from 2002, Angels and Demons, and Ghost Town. The music was composed by the king of 90s cinema scores, John Williams, and the music scores that he composes I feel like they're instant classics, and his work has been recognized with multiple awards, 5 Oscars, over 20 gold and platinum records, 2 Emmys, 3 Golden Globes, 25 Grammys, the National Board of Review Career Achievement Award, 6 Saturns, American Film Institute Lifetime Achievement Award, 7 BAFTA wins, and many more accolades. John Williams scored the movie at the end of February 1993 and recorded it a month later. He felt he needed to write pieces that would convey a sense of awe and fascination, given it dealt with the overwhelming happiness and excitement that would emerge from seeing live dinosaurs. And I believed he achieved it. That music that he wrote for this movie was inspiring. You may have also sampled some of his work in 7 Years in Tibet, Rosewood, Sleepers, or Nixon. And that's it for the opening credits. And as usual, I'd like you to check out my shop, backlickcinema.com/shop, and still working on Bazaar de Alonso. And now that we have talked about the opening credits, let's go to our next segment, Favorite Parts. What I like about this movie is that it's easy to assess the theme. The theme of this movie is like they're kind of beating you over the head with it, and they actually put it in a dialogue. And the overarching theme is just because you can do a thing doesn't mean that you should do that thing. Should you use ancient DNA to try to bring about an extinct species? Like that's kind of a maybe. Should that species be dinosaurs? Probably not. And that's kind of what the movie is saying. You know, probably shouldn't try to bring back large, dangerous animals that are bent on eating other animals. And that is the moral thread that kind of runs through this entire movie. The rush of capitalism and the seeking profits before considering common sense or safety. I think those are kind of interwoven with the main overarching theme. So it's a cautionary tale on greed and capitalism. But this is like 30 years later almost, and has anybody learned that lesson? It don't seem like it, but we're all gonna, I guess, push through as best we can. So there are a lot of great scenes in Jurassic Park, a lot of great scenes, a lot of great stunts, a lot of the visual effects achievements that were accomplished in the making of this film. Great performances. Obviously, the music is above par. There are just too many things that this movie contains that I would say were my favorite part. You know, it is kind of hard to pin down like 4 or 5. I could go on and on about a lot of the things that I absolutely love. So let's touch on one of the obvious ones, and that's like the technical achievement, the blend of computer animation and practical effects. Now, obviously, at the time, this is like computer animation in its infancy, and around this time when this movie came out, it was very difficult to achieve anything that was convincing using computers, especially when you're talking about living animals. And they had used some advanced programming, some advanced computer models for that time to create the bone and musculature of moving dinosaurs, and to do it convincingly. And doing that work, it took a very long time and it was very expensive. And a lot of people say, well, they were smart to blend the computer animation with practical effects, puppets and animatronics. But it's not like they had a lot of choice, because it was like the computer animation they were doing, it was very expensive. So it was like, and not necessarily convincing all of the time. It's like, even at that time, if you were not careful, you would just come out, you would make something that would look artificial. And obviously that's not something that Steven Spielberg wanted to do. And it took a lot of convincing and a lot of demonstration to prove to him that a computer model could be built that could look convincing on a movie screen. And so with careful use of the computer models they had at the time and carefully blending that with animatronics and puppetry, they were able to create something that was absolutely fantastic. Like, even now, it's barely indistinguishable from some of the computer graphics for today. Like right now, I think the best computer, or the best comparable computer graphics, is the work in Avatar, and that's a movie that's mostly computer graphics. They're using skeletal and musculature animatronics to create what looks like real living creatures. And a lot of people complain that, the CGI becomes dated after a while. I think that all special effects become dated after a while. And it's like you try to be as careful as you can, but as technology advances and as audiences become more sophisticated, that some of the stuff is going to date after, a few years. And even practical effects will look dated after a while. You're going to see the wires, or you're going to see an obvious stunt double, especially with some of the Blu-rays and the 4K that we have on our TVs nowadays. It's like you can tell some of the stuff. And some people, I think more people have a tendency to be more forgiving of practical effects than they are of digital effects. I think that's one of the factors. Like, they'll look at a lot of Ray Harryhausen's work from back in the 60s. They'll watch it today and they'll think it's cute and charming, even though we have technology now that can actually smooth out his stop motion animation for his puppets and make it look smoother and more lifelike. But people would still prefer the original because of how charming it looks or how cute it looks. And so we forgive it, and in a way that we won't forgive like the CGI in the Mummy series from the 1990s, where it's like, I think back then those effects from that movie looked realistic, but now when we look at it, it looks incredibly dated. And I think today, like, some people look at some of the more recent movies and it seems like the CGI isn't as good as, say, Jurassic Park from all the way in the 1990s. And they ask why. Why doesn't it look as good as Jurassic Park? And the reason is because when they made Jurassic Park, not only did they use it sparingly, but the artists had the time to render the artwork that was needed for production. And in today's world, on one hand, so many films are using CGI, and it's so much computer animation that needs to be done, and production wants to be done quickly, and they simply do not have the time to render realistic artwork for movies and a lot of the productions that come out today. And people just don't care. The reason that Avatar looks so great is because James Cameron, he wants it to look real. And so he's giving the artist the time to render the artwork so that it looks realistic. And he values the realistic look of the artwork over the speed of production. So if it takes more time to render the work, then James Cameron is willing to spend that time in a way that other directors and other producers don't want to spend that time. So that's why a lot of times the CGI just does not look as good. It's not because the artists are not as skilled or the computers aren't as powerful. It's just that they don't have the time that they need to do the work. But in any case, going back to Jurassic Park, it is absolutely magnificent that the work that they were able to do it's groundbreaking work in visual effects. And even now when watching it, you can't help but look at it and think that's incredible work. Like one of the first shots that you see of the dinosaurs, when the doctors, like when Dr. Grant and the others see the dinosaurs for the first time, I think they see a Bronchiosaurus, and that first shot is absolutely breathtaking. It's just magnificent. And I'm pretty sure that that's actually a CGI shot, and which it's barely, you can barely tell, right? It's just so good. And it's like, the man knew what he was doing when he shot it. And I remember there was something about aspect ratio and camera angles and all of these things that goes towards making the animals majestic. And I don't know the technical terms or I don't have a sufficient understanding of how he did it. I just know that whatever he did, it was extremely effective. And also I want to make note of some of the things that happen in the film. There are a lot of things that I actually had forgotten. For example, I forgot the first scene in the movie, like before they even get to the story. It's the movie opens on, I guess that Isla Nublar, I forget. It's that island. It's the dinosaur island where Jurassic Park is. And the animal workers, they're bringing in a new raptor. We know now that these had to be raptors, and they're transferring it from the crate to the park. And the accident happens, and the raptors are able to grab one of the workers, and I guess the animal handlers are trying to subdue the raptor through the cage, and they're having a hard time. And they didn't save the dude that the raptor was able to get its claws on. And it was the death of that worker that actually started the movie of Jurassic Park. It's the reason why Dr. Hammond seeks out the paleontologists to come and evaluate his island. The paleontologists, the lawyers, the mathematician. The death of that worker was the inciting incident. And that really gets the ball rolling on him having to demonstrate the park and to prove that the park can be safe and to show all the safety features and so on and so forth. And and I thought that was really smart. It was like, to me, it strikes me as really smart writing, because otherwise, I feel like I had just forgotten as to why Dr. Hammond needed, well, not Dr. Hammond, but David, what's his name? Hammond guy. Why the Hammond guy needed people to evaluate his park. It almost seems like in my memory, it was just for giggles, but no, there was actually a purpose behind it. Another thing that I like was the artistic design that is like the logo for Jurassic Park and all the Jurassic Park branding that was in the movie that later on translated to merchandise. Like after you saw the movie, you would buy Jurassic Park t-shirts and lunchboxes. Basically, like in the Malcolm speech that I did at the beginning of this episode, all of that happened. It's like they had a hit movie and they slapped the logo on t-shirts and lunchboxes and all of the things. You could find the logo on all of the things. And it seemed like at the time the movie came out, Jurassic Park was everywhere. And that's just a fantastic logo that they came up with for Jurassic Park. And that's the color scheme, the designs of the vehicles that was, or the way the vehicles were painted for the park. I found all of that fascinating, especially like I had went to school for graphic design, and those are some of my favorite designs. Well, I shouldn't say I went to school for graphic design. I should say that I took some graphic design classes. I think that it's more accurate to say that. They had a lot of cute moments, like with Dr. Grant, like not liking kids. Like they kind of showed how this kid was kind of snarky in the beginning when he was in Montana or Utah, wherever he was in the United States. And this kid was talking about how, you know, he didn't think he'd be afraid of a raptor. And Dr. Grant took out this little raptor claw and basically taught the kid how raptors like to kill their prey, and basically scared the bejeebies out of the little kid. And because, you know, he doesn't necessarily like children, and if he gets an opportunity, he likes to scare them to death. And later on in the movie, when he meets Hammond's grandchildren for the first time, one of his grandchildren, the boy named Tim was like following him around. Tim had read Dr. Grant's book. Tim knew a lot about dinosaurs, and Tim was like right up under Dr. Grant. Dr. Grant didn't like that because he don't like children. And so it was like an amusing point of him trying to get away from Tim. And you know, getting in and out of vehicles, running around, and they're finally asking Tim, "What truck are you getting into?" And Tim saying, "Whatever truck you're getting into," because Tim had met his hero and it was so enamored by Dr. Grant that he didn't realize that Dr. Grant was being incredibly rude to him. But and that's the thing about the performances that the actors gave, that all of the actors gave, were fantastic. There wasn't a weak one in the bunch. Like a lot of times you kind of expect the kids to be a little bit weaker, but no, we had none of that. These are all fantastic performances. As a matter of fact, I'll read it in the trivia later on, but the girl, Ariana Richards, who plays Alexis, it's like they got her specifically because she had that ability to convey fear very well. And so that's how much attention to the craft that, you know, the casting and the directors were paying attention to when they were seeking out actors for this movie. They had a lot of great iconic moments in this movie, like I guess they were like incidentals, like the water ripple. I think the water ripple became a meme. So this is when the park's power got shut down, and they were sent on a tour. Like you had the doctors and the lawyers. They're supposed to go on a tour of the park, and they're supposed to look at some of the dinosaurs. And a lot of the dinosaurs didn't want to make an appearance. And then while they were out there, the power had got shut down, and the vehicles were electric. So the vehicles were stuck and not moving, and they were on an electric track. So without power, none of the vehicles moved. So the dinosaurs were actually getting restless. And then the dinosaurs realized that the enclosures weren't electrified anymore. And that a lot of the dinosaurs started breaking through and getting out of their enclosures. And like you had the scientists, and they're sitting in their Jeep, the scientists and the children, they're sitting in their Jeep hoping that the power would come back on so they can, you know, get to safety. And the camera focuses on a cup of water, and all of a sudden you see ripples in the water, like from the ground shaking. And it's a rhythmic ripple. Like there's a deep impact, like from far away, and you would see the water ripple, and another deep impact, and you see the water ripple. And it was like a way of foreshadowing terror to come, and it was extremely effective. It was pretty awesome. It's like when you saw the water ripple, you started to get afraid, you started to get scared, or you got scared for the characters because you knew that something bad was going to happen. Steven Spielberg is really good at foreshadowing bad times to come, and I think the water ripple is probably the best one in all of cinema, or at least one of the best ones, because it's like the water ripple thing had been used in parodies and in cartoons, and it's been used in skits, right? It was a fantastic visual, basically a meme from the 1990s that kind of permeated through media at the time. And this leads to another part that was really neat, is Jeff Goldblum as Dr. Malcolm, and he was absolutely fantastic in this movie. This is one of my favorite movies that he's in. Probably my favorite Jeff Goldblum movie is The Fly, and Jurassic Park is probably my second favorite. So there's a moment in this movie where, like, soon after the water ripple, the cause of the ripple reveals itself, and there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex and starts chasing after the Jeep. It sees the Jeep and starts running. And I think at this point, they're in a gas powered Jeep, and they start driving away from the Tyrannosaur. But Tyrannosaurs in this movie are really fast. It's like it's getting up to 35 miles per hour, and it's catching up. And Malcolm is on the back of the Jeep, like his leg is broken, and he broke his leg trying to rescue those kids. And he's exposed to the Tyrannosaur. And the driver is, I think it's Robert. And Robert Muldoon, he's like the head of the wildlife at Jurassic Park. And he's driving away from the dinosaur, but the dinosaur is catching up and is like nipping at Jeff Goldblum's Malcolm. And it's a Tyrannosaur, just imagine a Tyrannosaurus Rex nipping at you. And Malcolm is going faster, must go faster, right? It's almost like what he's saying makes perfect sense, and at the same time doesn't make any sense at all. So yeah, it was that's a funny part. And it's one of my favorite parts of the movie, where they're trying to get away from the Tyrannosaur, and Jeff Goldblum is in peril. That was funny. I know I am doing a lot of skipping around, but like I said, there are so many parts in this movie, and I couldn't possibly talk about them all without actually and actively just narrating the entire movie. But another one of my favorite parts is the clever girl. So this is when Robert Muldoon, when he's out there, and basically he's throwing himself out as, I guess, a kind of distraction. Is like the scientists are trying to get away, and so he's trying to kill some of the raptors that's hunting them. I guess he feels like if he can pick off some of the raptors, then, because I think there are only 8 of them, or maybe there's 4 of them. I can't remember how many raptors there are, but if he could pick off a couple of them, that would give them a fighting chance. So he's actually trying to hunt down the raptors while the scientists are getting away. And, he's got his elephant gun or wherever he's using to hunt down the raptors. And he's chasing one, and then one, and that one is like, or he's tracking one, and that one that he's tracking is like right in front of him. And he thinks he's got it. Like, he's got this raptor's dead to right because it's right in front of him. And next thing you know, there's one on his side. And Dr. Grant had talked about how raptors hunt. It's like, the way the raptors hunt is that there's one raptor that's kind of set itself up as bait or distraction that will show itself to the prey. And the prey would adjust their movement based on that one raptor that it could see. But the prey does not see the raptor that's on either side of it, because the prey has been flanked. And this was what happens to Muldoon. What's his name again? Yeah, Muldoon. This is what happens to him. He gets flanked by the other 2 raptors because they hunt in teams. And so the raptor, so he sees the one that's in front of him, and then the raptor beside him showed itself, and Muldoon sees the raptor on the side, and he says, "Clever girl," right? Those are his famous last words. Those are probably one of the best last words you ever see, and I really love it. For some reason, I believe that was in Jurassic Park: The Lost World, But no, it's in this movie. It happens in the very first movie. It's actually absolutely golden. One of my favorite parts is basically the whole raptor chase when the raptors are going after the little girls. The funny thing is that back in the day, it felt like when they did dinosaur movies, the most dangerous dinosaur always seemed to be the Tyrannosaurus Rex or the Allosaurus, which looks like another Tyrannosaurus Rex. I guess it's just a little smaller, but it's like for somebody who's not a biologist, they seem indistinguishable. So I used to watch a show called Land of the Lost, and they featured dinosaurs, and like the T-Rex was just the most fearsome and the most dangerous one that you had to look out for. And there really weren't other dinosaurs that you had to worry about. But what I appreciate about Jurassic Park, it showed a wide range of dinosaurs, and they were all dangerous in their own way. They didn't show some of the plant eaters being dangerous. Like it seemed like they showed the Bronchiosaurus being somewhat friendly or docile, and they showed a sick Triceratops. And because that animal was sick, it didn't really pose much of a threat. I'm pretty sure that if they encountered one that was well and alert, that it would also present as a danger, the same way that a rhinoceros are dangerous, in the same way that hippos are dangerous. I think Triceratops would be dangerous in that way, like just attacking anything that comes near it. It's got all those horns. It's got and something like a Stegosaurus has like a spiked tail. Like none of these animals are friendly. It's just like they got too many pointy bits to make you feel like they're on friendly terms. I think that any herbivore that's got a bunch of horns protruding from it is probably not a friendly fellow. So I guess it's lucky that the Triceratops that they encountered was a sick one. The other dangerous animals that they had were like this little chicken-sized animal that spat venom at your face. So that was the one that took out Newman, or if you don't want to say that his name is Newman, you can say his name is Dennis Dietrich. Dennis Dietrich is the unsatisfied computer tech that was unsatisfied with how much he was being paid. And so he was going to steal some dinosaur embryos and sell it to a competitor to get back at Hammond, because he felt that Hammond wasn't paying him fairly. And he goes and and getting the samples on a rainy night to a ship so that he could hand off the samples to the people on that ship so they can, smuggle it away. He gets basically tripped up in the mud, and he gets attacked by this. Well, first he's followed by this, or hassled by this small dinosaur. I forgot what it's called. He's hassled by this small dinosaur. And then the small dinosaur traps him in his Jeep and spits in his face, and then, I guess chomps him down. I guess, he's eaten by that small dinosaur, or at least the small dinosaur snacks on him. He's definitely killed. I don't see him surviving. Like, he didn't show up for the sequels, so I presume that Dennis Dietrich had died in the first movie. So that we're seeing that animal is dangerous, and that's not like a particularly large animal. And then you have the raptors, and the raptors are the most dangerous animals because they're so smart. I mean, yes, the T-Rex is dangerous, but you can if you can get into a small space, you can kind of get away from the T-Rex. But the raptor is smart. It's human sized, so wherever humans can go, raptors can go too. Raptors can figure out how to open doors. Raptors hunt in packs. They communicate with each other. So pretty spicy boys, and they're tracking down the children. So that is when they're chasing the children down within the main building of Jurassic Park. That was very entertaining. It was thrilling. It was suspenseful. It was funny at times. And the scene that kicked it off is one of my favorite scenes, is when you had Alexis, and it's like the kids get out of the park and they go into the dining room, and there's dessert laid out everywhere. So they just start just jamming cakes and ice cream into their mouths. They see all of this food, all of this sugar, and they just start cramming it into their mouths, probably because they're hungry, and also because, kids love sugar. And so there's a point when Alexis, she has a spoonful of Jell-O, and she's about to eat the Jell-O, and then she freezes, and she's just in total shock, and where she can't move. And that's because opposite her is a raptor, and she's just gotten away from dinosaurs, and now she's frozen in fear. And then after she gets over being frozen in fear, she takes off. And a few years ago, I saw a picture of the actor Ariana Richards doing the same pose with the Jell-O as a full-grown adult that she did when she was, I guess, 12 years old, playing Alexis in Jurassic Park. It was like a side-by-side photo comparison of her as an adult doing the Jell-O pose, and a still of her as a younger girl doing the Jell-O pose. It was a cute photo. I don't know if I can find it on the internet right now, but I just remembered that just now as I was speaking. But at any rate, the Jell-O moments, as I call it, it's one of my favorite moments in Jurassic Park. And one of the neatest moments in Jurassic Park is when everybody's kind of getting away from the raptors, and it's like they're kind of running out the building, and the raptors are chasing them. And just before the raptors catches up with the humans, the T-Rex kind of just break into the scene and snatches one of the raptors. And so now the raptors are attacking it, but it basically dispatches both of the raptors, and then it roars in triumph. And then as it's roaring, the banner that was at the ceiling starts floating down, and the banner says, "When dinosaurs ruled the earth." Then it's almost as though it's draping over the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which means king of the terrible lizards. Actually, I think Tyrannosaurus means tyrant lizard, so Tyrannosaurus Rex means tyrant lizard king. So that was it was just a beautiful artistic moment. And of course, at the end of the movie, the scientists and the mathematicians say that they can't endorse the Jurassic Park project, and Hammond quickly agrees, at least at that point, until he gets the idea to do another Jurassic Park. So but anyways, at least in fiction, capitalists can learn their lessons in a way that they never learn in real life. So that's it for my favorite parts. I can't help but wonder if I touched on some of your favorite parts, but I probably didn't, because I did a lot of skipping over. So why don't you call me or write me, send me a notification on the socials. Let me know what some of your favorite parts of Jurassic Park was. And that's it for that segment. Let's go to the next segment, the top 10 trivia. Trivia top 10 is provided by IMDb. Mostly, I think I got all of these from IMDb. And the first one is, interest in paleontology waned during the atomic age and the space race, but according to Dr. Nate Smith of the Natural History Museum's Dinosaur Institute, Jurassic Park coming out generated a bunch of interest amongst young people that wanted to become paleontologists and get into the field. As a result, numerous dinosaur species had been discovered since then, at roughly a rate of 50 new dinosaurs per year, or about one per week. Now, that's a lot of critters. According to the behind-the-scenes book, The Making of Jurassic Park, an adventure 65 million years in the making, the infamous roar of the Tyrannosaurus were a composite mix of a dog, penguin, tiger snarl, alligator gurgle, and a baby elephant's squeal. The very deep alligator vocal acted as the low-frequency element of the final roar. However, as Gary Rodstrom stresses, the key part of the sound is the high-frequency element, the baby elephant. Rodstrom describes how during the recording session, the baby elephant only did the iconic, cute, high-pitched scream that forms the basis of every T-Rex roar in the film once. We kept trying to get it to do it again, and the handlers were saying, "We never heard it do that before. It's a weird sound." As Rydstrom stresses, the introduction of the T-Rex is a scene expressly planned around sound design. I think maybe other directors would have had a shock moment where you see the T-Rex show up out of the blue. Spielberg was great in the T-Rex scene by getting several minutes of tension because you knew what was coming. And you knew it because you heard it before you saw it. And it's nice when movies think about sound that way. The T-Rex occasionally malfunctioned due to the rain. Producer Kathleen Kennedy recalls the T-Rex went into the heebie-jeebies sometimes, scared the crap out of us. We'd be like eating lunch and all of a sudden the T-Rex would come alive. At first we didn't know what was happening, and then we realized it was the rain. You'd hear people start screaming. So in this incident, or the incidents that had happened, it was that the T-Rex would seemingly come alive. So I guess that had to be scary. When Hurricane Iniki hit, the cast and crew were all required to move into the ballroom of a hotel in which they were staying. Sir Richard Attenborough, however, stayed in his hotel room and slept through the entire event. When asked how he could have possibly done this, Attenborough replied, "My dear boy, I survived the Blitz." And I guess after you survive the Blitz, there's not a lot that frightens you. Director Steven Spielberg wanted the velociraptors to be about 10 feet tall, which was taller than they were known to be. According to an artist involved in pre-production, Spielberg requested this change because he was unhappy with the size of what was considered the largest dromaeosaurid at the time, Deinonychus, and wanted it to be bigger. Another reason was to make the raptor more menacing. Spielberg also wanted the dinosaurs to be more bird-like. For example, snapping to attention like a chicken. He wanted the raptors to turn their heads so that they could look behind them to make them have a scarier appearance. Spielberg likened the raptor tapping the claw to Morse code to any raptor listening. So I feel like these are clues to how Spielberg had an influence on making the raptors feel more dangerous and scarier in the movie. There's a big deal made about the velociraptors in the film, and in the novel more closely resembles the Deinonychus, a related species to raptors, but at the start of production, the largest known velociraptors were barely taller than a man's knee and not that intimidating. Deinonychus, that's the one that Spielberg was not satisfied with, was slightly larger, but still not that intimidating. The raptors in Jurassic Park were about the height of a full-grown man and rightly intimidating. During filming, a raptor species called Utahraptor, because they were found in Utah, were confirmed to be the same size and proportions as the versions of raptors used in the film. So the film and the book were retroactively correct about the size of raptors after all. But they still lacked feathers, though. The guest's encounter with the Triceratops ends without any clear explanation as to why the animal is sick. Michael Crichton's original novel and the screenplay, however, includes an explanation. The Stegosaurus/Triceratops lacked suitable teeth for grinding food, and so, like birds, would swallow rocks and use them as gizzard stones. In the digestive tracts, these rocks would grind the food to aid in digestion. After 6 weeks, the rocks would become too smooth to be useful, and the animal would regurgitate them. When finding and eating new rocks to use, the animal would also swallow West Indian lilac berries. The fact that the berries and stones were regurgitated explains why Ellie never finds traces of them in the animal's excrement. So there's that scene where Ellie has her hands elbow deep in dino doo-doo, looking for evidence that the Triceratops had eaten some of these poison berries, which would cause it to be sick. Because she thought that something that the animals were eating was making it sick. And when she was digging in the doo-doo, she didn't find anything that would suggest that the animal had poisoned itself accidentally. And what they didn't explain in the film, but what they explained in the book and what's in the screenplay, was that the Triceratops was swallowing rocks, and when it would get the rocks, it would accidentally swallow some of these poison flowers, and that's why it got sick. It would regurgitate the flowers, and when it regurgitated the rocks, it regurgitated the evidence that it ate the berries. Well, that's why Ellie didn't, she never figured out what made the animal sick. And I guess they were going to explain this in the movie, but then, they decided to cut that part out, because, now the dinosaurs are trying to eat them. And so they don't have time to solve this mystery about the Triceratops. Universal Pictures paid Michael Crichton $2 million for the rights to his novel before it even published. Someone read the manuscript and was like, this a hit. This a hit right here. When Michael Crichton was asked why the novel has Jurassic in the title and has a dinosaur from the Cretaceous period on the cover, he replied that it never occurred to him and admitted that it was just the best looking design. Ariana Richards' audition consisted of standing in front of a camera and screaming wildly. Steven Spielberg wanted to see how she could show fear. Richards remember, I heard later on that Steven had watched a few girls on tape that day, and I was the only one who ended up waking his sleeping wife off of the couch. And she came running through the hallways to see if the kids were all right. So yeah, she was the one that conveyed fear the best. And that's it for the trivia. Let's see what the critics thought. The critics have Jurassic Park at 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score is also at 91%. On IMDb reviews, it's at 8.2 out of 10. Ella Taylor from LA Weekly wrote, a stiff, preachy fright fest with no story and no room for ours, no characters worthy of our affection or hatred, and almost no fantasy life. This, I feel like I can safely disagree with. Like, what is she even talking about? I mean, I maybe she missed the first part of the movie. Like, I don't know. There were so many stories in this movie. So many like small narrative. There was the story of the scientists going to the park. There was the story of the man that got killed that was the impetus for getting the scientists to come to the park in the first place. There was the story of the disgruntled tech guy who didn't feel that he was getting paid enough, so he was going to steal the technology for the dinosaurs and going to sell them to the competitor. There was the story of a man who was obsessed with creating dinosaurs and creating something that would marvel the world. That there are so many stories in here, and so maybe she just didn't get it. Eleanor Wrinkle Cater from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution wrote, a sinfully entertaining state-of-the-art summer blockbuster whose merit nonstop thrills easily exceeds its mega hype. And that is the truth. Dolores Barkley from the Associated Press wrote, despite all that creative technology thundering across the big screen, the thrilling adventure, ominous edge, and cautionary tale crafted in Michael Crichton's best-selling novel have been homogenized by Spielberg into a sappy and meaningless joyride. So I disagree. Yeah, I actually read Jurassic Park. Obviously, there's so much more in the novel than we saw on the screen, but there's only so much that you can put on the screen. So they basically condensed the novel into that theme of just because you can do a thing doesn't mean that you should do a thing. And there are lots of chills and thrills that go along with it. There is plenty of action in John Crichton's original novel, and so much of the action and so many dinosaurs, they could not put it in the first film. And I think what happened is that it was either in the second film or the third film that they added some of the scenes that were in the first novel and they put in the subsequent sequels because there was so much stuff going on. So I feel that let's just say I don't agree with the statement that Dolores Barkley had made. Finally, Allison Jones from the Birmingham Mail wrote, Steven Spielberg's new monster movie, Jurassic Park, is the stuff nightmares are made of. After seeing the first British screening yesterday, I found myself shaking as much as when I watched Jaws nearly 20 years ago. So yeah, as a scary movie, Jurassic Park is very effective. Finally, Jurassic Park is, as of this recording, available on Netflix and TNT. I was tempted to do another Spielberg movie, but I decided to let Spielberg rest a little bit and go in a totally different direction. Next episode, we'll take on the life of a fascinating figure in American music history. So join me next time as we take a look at the life of Ritchie Valens through the lens of the film La Bamba. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. Please contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlickcinema.com. Please rate and review on your favorite podcast app. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like or subscribe or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. One last time, if you like this show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlick Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe, share a movie from yesteryear with your family, hug your loved ones, and if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.